I had just set the last fork down when she snapped her fingers, like she was calling a waiter, not her husband's father. "Wine, please," Madison said without looking up from her phone. "And not the cheap stuff this time." I froze for half a second, hand hovering over the bottle of Cabernet I'd bought at Costco for $15. The way she said it, flat, entitled, like she owned the place, hit me right in the gut. That bottle wasn't cheap to me. It was the same kind of wine my wife, Laura, used to buy for our anniversary dinners. Madison didn't know that, or maybe she just didn't care. Before we continue, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. The house smelled like roasted chicken and thyme. Eric sat across from me, scrolling through ESPN highlights, pretending not to hear. My son had learned the art of disappearing without leaving the room. Madison sat in Laura's old chair, her elbow perched on the table edge, her legs crossed like she owned the air around her. When she moved in 2 years ago, she said it was temporary. 2 years later, she still hadn't paid a dime toward the mortgage, but she'd replaced my wife's framed cross-stitch with a neon quote from Target that read, "Live, laugh, love." I kept quiet then. I kept quiet through a lot of things. But that night, something in me cracked. Maybe it was the way she used my wife's wine glasses like disposable cups. Maybe it was how she called me Walt instead of Dad. Or maybe it was just time. "No," I said. It came out small, but it was solid. Madison blinked like she didn't understand the word. "Excuse me?" "You've got hands," I said. "You can pour it yourself." The room went silent except for the faint buzz of the ceiling fan. Eric finally looked up, confused. Madison's lips curled into a smirk. "Wow!" Someone woke up feisty. I thought that would be it. A sarcastic remark, maybe a slammed door later. But then it happened. So fast I barely processed it. Madison grabbed the salad bowl, heavy ceramic with that blue rim Laura had picked out at Crate and Barrel years ago, and hurled it across the table. It shattered against my cheek. For a split second, the world blurred into white noise. The sound was sharp, the sting immediate, and then warmth, blood trickling down my face. Eric shouted her name. She said nothing. She just sat back and crossed her arms. "Servants should know their duties," she muttered. That line, those 5 words. Something shifted inside me. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything back. I just stood there, holding a napkin to my cheek. My son said, "Dad, it was an accident." His voice small, panicked, like a boy again. I looked at him, really looked, and realized he didn't even believe his own words. I walked to the sink, rinsed my hands, and pressed a clean napkin to the wound. The tile under my feet felt cold, steadier than anything else in the room. I went upstairs, closed the door, and locked it. For the first time in my life, I locked a door between me and my own child. In the mirror, I saw the cut, a thin red line across my cheekbone. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I just took my phone, turned on the camera, and snapped a picture. Then another. The flash popped against the bathroom tile. Each click felt like a tiny act of control. Downstairs, I could hear them talking. Madison's voice, sharp, defensive. Eric's, muffled, guilty. I didn't catch the words, but I caught the tone. The same one she used when she got caught lying about her student loans last spring. The same one she used when she told me she'd handle the bills, and then let the electric company send 2 late notices to my address. I sat on the edge of the bed, thumb brushing the photo on my screen. The bruise was starting to darken already. I opened the drawer of my nightstand, pulled out a small USB stick, and stared at it. It was from the old Nest security system Laura made me install before she passed. I'd never turned it off, not once. That's when I remembered the dining room camera was still connected to the cloud. Every night it uploaded footage automatically to my Google account. I felt my pulse steady for the first time all evening. I opened my laptop, logged in, and scrolled through the saved clips. There it was, time-stamped, clear as day. Madison's arm, the bowl, my face. Eric frozen mid-motion. No shouting, no context, just raw truth. I copied the footage to the USB, labeled it dinner, and slipped it into the drawer under my socks. The hum of the air conditioner filled the room. My hands stopped shaking. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs. Eric's voice, soft at first, and then urgent. "Dad, open up." She didn't mean it. You know how she gets. I stayed silent. Another knock, harder this time. "Dad, come on." "Don't make this a big thing." I looked at the mirror again, the blood already drying. I whispered to myself, "It already is." The knocking stopped. The house went still. For a long time, I just sat there, listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator downstairs. Then I reached into the bottom drawer, found the old folder marked Mortgage 1993, and ran my fingers over my name, Walter J. Harris, the only name on the deed. I turned off the light, closed the laptop, and whispered one sentence I hadn't said out loud in years. This house doesn't belong to them. And as the screen went dark, I realized neither did I. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon and fake niceness. Madison was humming in the kitchen like nothing had happened. I stood at the top of the stairs, my cheeks still sore, and watched her move around my stove in one of Laura's old aprons, that small floral one with the faded yellow ties. She didn't even ask before taking it out of the drawer. It used to make me smile seeing someone use it. Now it made my stomach turn. Eric looked up when he saw me. "Morning, Dad," he said, voice light, but his eyes heavy. There was a bruise on his jawline. Not from me. I knew that look too well. Madison smiled sweetly. "Made your favorite. Scrambled eggs. Thought we could all have breakfast together. Reset. That word hung between us like the smell of burned butter. She had cleaned the table spotless, like wiping the evidence of last night away would erase it. But the camera didn't forget. I poured myself coffee and said nothing. The bruise on my face had deepened to a dark purple. Madison's eyes darted to it once, then away. Eric followed her lead. He used to be braver than that. I remember him standing up to bullies when he was 12, fists clenched, ready to protect anyone smaller than him. Now, at 35, he couldn't even look me in the eye. "Dad," he started, "Madison told me she apologized last night." "She didn't," I said. Madison's smile tightened. "I tried, but you locked your door." "I think we all overreacted, don't you?" That word again. We. Like we had both thrown that bowl. I didn't answer. Instead, I reached under the counter and pulled open the drawer where I kept my utility bills. Neat stacks, organized month by month. I slid one out, electricity for September. My name, my signature, my credit card. Madison's face twitched when she saw it. "Something wrong, Walt?" she asked. "No," I said, folding the bill slowly. "Just checking who's been keeping the lights on." Her jaw clenched, but she didn't respond. That morning I drove into town to a quiet cafe on the corner of Main and Broad, an old place called Miller's, with sticky booths and a waitress who still called me sweetheart. I ordered black coffee and a slice of pecan pie and opened my laptop. I downloaded every security clip from the Nest account, every motion-triggered second from the past 6 months. Madison shouting, Madison slamming doors, Madison mocking my wife's photo on the mantel. It was all there. I spent hours organizing it by date. It wasn't about revenge yet. It was about remembering what was real. When you live with people like that long enough, you start questioning your own memory. At 2 p.m., I walked into Janice Miller's law office 2 blocks down. She used to teach civics with me back in the day before retiring. Into real estate law. She still had that same old-school way of talking. Sharp, no nonsense. "Walter Harris," she said, adjusting her glasses. "You look like hell." "What's going on?" I told her everything. Not the dramatic version, just the facts. The bowl. The threats. The bank accounts they asked me to combine for convenience. She didn't interrupt until I finished. Then she leaned back. "Do you still have your original mortgage file?" "Every page since 1993. "Good," she said. "Don't sign anything. Don't give them power of attorney. Don't let them refinance. And for the love of God, stop making excuses for your son." That one stung. I looked down at my hands. He's not a bad kid, Jan. He just lost his way. He's a grown man, Walt. And if he lets her hurt you, that makes him something worse than lost. I left her office with a folder of legal advice and a tremor in my chest that felt like clarity. That evening, Madison was on the phone in the living room. I stood in the hallway, half hidden. Once the deed's in our name, she said, we can refinance and pay off my student loans. He'll sign if Eric pushes him. I recorded every word. Later that night, Eric knocked on my door again. Dad, can we talk? I let him in this time. He sat on the edge of the bed like a boy caught lying. Madison's under a lot of pressure, he said. She didn't mean to throw that bowl. She just feels like you don't trust her. I laughed softly. Eric, do you trust her? He hesitated just a second, then said, Of course I do. That second was enough. I reached into the drawer and handed him one photo, the frame from the footage where Madison's arm was mid-swing. You think that's pressure? I said quietly. That's choice. He stared at it for a long moment. You saved this? I saved everything, I said. His face went pale. He didn't say another word, just left the room. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Madison's voice downstairs, low and panicked. I stepped to the top of the stairs, just in time to hear her hiss, If he shows that video, we're done, Eric. I mean it. He didn't answer. That was the first time I'd ever heard fear in her voice. Not anger, not arrogance, just fear. I went back into my room, opened my old safe, and slid the USB inside next to my wife's wedding ring. Then I pulled out the folder Janice had given me, the one labeled Elder Protection and Asset Control. I looked out the window where the oak tree in the yard cast a long shadow across the driveway. My son's car was gone. Madison still sat in the garage. For the first time in months, the house felt quiet, heavy, waiting. I picked up the phone, dialed Janice's number, and said only one sentence. Let's start the paperwork. Downstairs, the front door opened. Footsteps. Then Madison's voice, sharp, echoing through the hall. Walter, we need to talk about the house. And I smiled to myself, because she had no idea what was already waiting for her. ChatGPT John Noy. Madison was waiting for me when I came downstairs. She was sitting at the dining table with her laptop open, manicured nails clicking like a metronome of irritation. The morning light filtered through the blinds, striping the table in pale gold and shadow. We need to talk, she said, voice sugar-sweet but sharp underneath. Eric stood behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. He looked more like a bodyguard than a son. I poured myself a cup of coffee before answering. If this is about last night, I've already said everything I needed to. She closed the laptop with a soft snap. It's not about that. It's about this house. There it was. No preamble. No apology. Straight to business. Eric cleared his throat. Dad, look. We've been talking, and we think it might make sense to transfer the deed into our name. Just for now. It'll protect the equity. Simplify taxes. All that. I took a slow sip of coffee. It burned a little, but I didn't flinch. Protect it from who? Madison smiled like I'd missed something obvious. Well, you're retired, right? If something happens to you, God forbid, we'd get caught in probate. It's just paperwork, paperwork. That word again. I set the mug down carefully, my fingers steady on the handle. You want me to sign over the house I paid off in 2010 just to save you from paperwork. She crossed her arms. Don't make it sound ugly. We're family, Eric added quickly. It's not like we're throwing you out. You'd still live here, Dad. The way he said you'd still live here made me realize they already saw it as theirs. The chairs, the walls, the roof, every nail of it. My name might be on the deed, but in their heads I was already a guest. I reached into the drawer by the fridge and pulled out a folder. You know, I said quietly, I've been meaning to show you something. I laid it all out, one page at a time. The September electric bill, the mortgage deed, the printout from the security camera, the freeze frame of Madison mid-swing, her face twisted in fury, and finally a small silver USB drive. Her confidence faltered for the first time. What's that? Proof, I said. Proof that this isn't your house, and that your idea of family doesn't include respect. Eric's face drained of color. Dad, You recorded us? I met his eyes. You hit me, Eric. You let her hit me. I didn't record you. I protected myself. The room went still. Even the fridge hum seemed to stop. Madison's hand trembled slightly before she hid it under the table. You're bluffing, she said. Am I? I asked, sliding a sheet of paper toward her. It was a copy of the email from Janice, the retired lawyer, her name signed neatly at the bottom. Advisory notice, property ownership and protection of assets. Madison pushed back from the table, her chair screeching against the tile. This is insane. He's turning this into a legal circus. Eric rubbed his temples. Madison, stop. But she didn't. She slammed her palm on the table. You're not taking this from me. I've built a life here. We've done everything for you. Everything? I asked, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it. You mean eating my food, living rent-free, mocking my dead wife, and throwing dishes when you don't get your way? Her face twisted. You think anyone will believe you? You're old. You're bitter. It's your word against ours, I smiled then. Small, tired, but real. You should check the cloud storage. Her eyes widened just slightly. She knew. That's when she lunged for the laptop. I let her. She opened it, clicking furiously, her fingers moving faster by the second. Then her face drained of color. The files were gone from the shared drive. I moved them, I said softly, to someone who actually knows what to do with them. Eric's voice cracked. Who? Janice, I said, my attorney. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Madison laughed, a hollow, nervous sound. You think you can take us to court? For what? A family argument? I leaned back, folded my hands, and said, for elder abuse. The words landed like a hammer. Eric's eyes flickered toward me, horrified. Madison froze. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I would, I said, because last night wasn't an argument. It was assault, and the state of Ohio takes that seriously. Eric started pacing, muttering, Jesus, this has gone too far. Madison stood there, trembling with anger she couldn't mask anymore. You're ruining our lives. I stared at her. You did that yourself. She stormed out of the room, phone in hand, calling someone, her voice shrill and shaking. I heard fragments. Lawyer. Crazy old man. Video. Eric didn't follow her. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, staring at the floor. After a moment, he whispered, Dad, what are you going to do? I took a breath and looked at the folder still spread across the table. I'm going to take my life back, I said. He didn't answer. He just nodded, like he finally understood. Outside, a car engine started. Madison's. She peeled out of the driveway, tires screeching against the pavement. The house went quiet again, the kind of silence that feels both heavy and clean. I gathered the documents, stacked them neatly, and tucked the USB back into my pocket. My heart was steady now, not angry, not afraid, just done. Then my phone buzzed, a text from Janice. Police report filed. I'll meet you at 3 p.m. Bring your ID. I exhaled, long and slow, and poured the last of my coffee into the sink. For the first time in years, I wasn't sure if I was the victim anymore, or the beginning of their reckoning. And then from outside came the faint sound of a car door slamming, followed by another engine. Eric's truck, leaving too. The house was mine again, for now. But something in my gut told me the next knock on that door wouldn't be a friendly one. The next morning, the house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that hums in your bones and makes you wonder what's coming next. I sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where the bowl had hit me weeks ago, running my fingers along the faint hairline crack in the wood. Madison hadn't come home that night. Eric hadn't called. I figured they were regrouping, plotting their next move. The coffee pot sputtered behind me. I poured a cup, black, no sugar this time. My lawyer, Janice, had said to keep calm and keep paper. So that's what I did. I kept every receipt, every photo, Every recording backed up in 3 places, even printed copies, because paper still tells the truth when people don't. By noon, Eric's truck pulled into the driveway. He didn't knock. He just walked in like he always did. His eyes were sunken, his shirt wrinkled. He looked smaller somehow. "Dad, we need to talk." "Funny," I said, sipping my coffee. "That's what Madison said last time." He didn't rise to it. He set a stack of papers on the table. Real estate forms already filled out. "She's not trying to steal anything. She just thinks this would protect us all if something happened to you." I smiled. Slow. "You mean if I died?" He swallowed hard. "Don't make it sound like that." "Eric, it is like that." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Dad, please." "I'm just trying to keep the peace." I leaned forward. "You lost the right to call it peace when you watched her throw that bowl." He flinched like I'd hit him. I didn't mean to, but part of me was glad he felt something. "I was scared," he muttered. "So was I said quietly. "Difference is, I did something about it." Right then, there was a sharp knock at the door. 3 taps, steady, official. Eric turned, confused. I didn't move. "You might want to open it," I said. He did. On the porch stood 2 uniformed officers and a woman in plain clothes with a clipboard. "Good afternoon," she said. "We're here to serve a temporary restraining order on behalf of Mr. Walter Harris." Eric froze. Madison, who'd apparently been sitting in the car, appeared behind them, sunglasses hiding nothing. "This is insane," she shouted. "You can't do this to your own family." The officer's tone stayed calm. "Ma'am, you've been legally notified. You have 30 days to vacate this property pending investigation of elder abuse and coercion." Madison's face turned a blotchy red. "You can't prove anything." I stood, walked to the doorway, and held out my phone. The video was paused on the exact frame. The bowl midair, her hand open, my head turned. I pressed play. The sound filled the room. Her gasp, my silence, the shatter. Eric covered his mouth. Madison's voice cracked. "You recorded me?" "No," I said evenly. "I recorded the truth." Janice's words echoed in my head. "They'll never see it coming if you stay quiet long enough." The officers escorted Madison out, giving her 15 minutes to collect her things. She grabbed her clothes in handfuls, muttering curses under her breath. Eric followed her halfway up the stairs before stopping. He turned to me, eyes glassy. "You didn't have to do this." "Didn't I?" I said. "Because if I didn't, she'd still be sitting in my wife's chair, drinking from my glass, pretending I'm her servant." He said nothing. Just looked at me like he was seeing someone he didn't recognize. Maybe for the first time, he wasn't wrong. When they left, the silence returned. But this time, it felt clean, like the air after a storm. I walked through the house slowly, room by room, touching the things they'd never noticed. Laura's quilt, the dent in the doorframe where Eric had measured his height as a kid, the old photo of our first fishing trip. I'd been living like a guest in my own life, not anymore. That night, I packed a box, not to leave, but to prepare. The deed, my documents, a copy of the video, and Janice's contact card went inside. I poured a glass of that same Cabernet, the cheap stuff, and toasted the quiet. The next week moved fast. Madison filed a counterclaim, of course, claimed I was emotionally unstable. But the footage in the police report spoke louder than her tears. A local paper caught the story. "Retired teacher fights back against family abuse." The headline went viral faster than I expected. Calls came in from advocacy groups, even a small TV station wanting an interview. I didn't answer most of them. I wasn't doing this for a show. I just wanted my peace, and maybe to remind a few folks like me they're not crazy for fighting back. By the 3rd week, the judge signed the final order. Madison was barred from contacting me. Eric was allowed supervised visits if I wanted them. He came by once after that, stood in the driveway with his hands in his pockets, eyes red. "Dad," he said softly, "we lost everything." I stepped onto the porch. "No, son, you lost control." He didn't argue. He just nodded, got back in his truck, and drove away. Inside, I brewed coffee and set out a fresh stack of paper. Bills, receipts, bank statements, all in my name, all mine. For the first time in years, I didn't feel old or fragile. I felt awake. When the mail came, there was a small card inside, handwritten, no return address. It read, "Sometimes strength doesn't roar. Sometimes it just locks the door." I smiled, slipped it into the drawer with the rest of my documents, and poured another cup of coffee. Outside, the afternoon sun fell across the yard, lighting up the cracks in the driveway like veins of gold. And when I looked at that empty dining chair, the one she used to sit in, it didn't look like loss anymore. It looked like proof I'd finally taken my life back. But as I turned off the porch light, my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Tell your lawyer to check the news." I froze, the coffee cooling in my hand. Because whatever this was, it wasn't over yet. I didn't sleep that night. The message, "Tell your lawyer to check the news," buzzed in my head like a mosquito I couldn't swat. At 6:42 a.m., I made a pot of coffee and called Janice. She answered on the first ring. "Morning, Walt," she said. "I was about to call you." Her voice had that tight edge that only lawyers get when something's both bad and useful. "You've seen it?" I asked. "Oh, I've seen it," she said. "Turn on Channel 5. I did. There it was, my family, splashed across the morning news ticker. Local couple accused of elder abuse, faces civil action. The anchor's voice was calm, but the details were not. Recorded video, police reports, financial coercion. They didn't use my name, but they didn't have to. Eric's company did. By 9 o'clock, his employer had released a statement. Effective immediately, Mr. Eric Harris is placed on indefinite leave pending review. Madison's name trended on Facebook within hours. Someone leaked her old texts, the ones where she bragged about teaching her father-in-law respect. The comments were brutal. Neighbors who used to wave at them in the driveway started posting sympathy notes under the article about me. Janice called again at noon. "They're panicking," she said. Her lawyer reached out to propose a settlement. I stirred my coffee slowly. "I don't want their money." "Then what do you want?" I looked out the window where the winter sun caught the edge of the old oak tree. "I want them gone." By the following week, they were. Madison moved out first, suitcase dragging, eyes hidden behind cheap sunglasses. Eric followed a day later. He didn't speak, just placed a set of keys on the porch rail and drove off without looking back. When the locks were changed, I stood on the porch and watched the locksmith's drill hum into the brass. The sound was loud, final. The man handed me the new keys and said, "That's that?" But it wasn't. 2 days later, Janice called again. "You might want to hear this," she said. "Madison just filed for bankruptcy. Turns out she used your address on 3 of her loan applications. Investigators are digging through it now. Could get messy. I didn't respond right away. I just let the silence sit there. Heavy and clean. Messy's not my problem anymore," I said finally. Eric tried to call once. I didn't pick up. The voicemail was short. "Dad, I'm sorry." I didn't know what she was doing. I listened to it twice, not because I wanted to hear the words, but because I wanted to make sure I didn't feel anything. I didn't. Weeks passed. The headlines faded. The air in the house felt lighter somehow, like it could finally breathe again. I went through each room, donating clothes, boxing up old papers, dusting shelves that hadn't seen daylight in years. In the attic, I found something I hadn't expected. A box Laura had labeled in her soft cursive, "Retirement Plans." Inside was a folded map of the Blue Ridge Parkway, a brochure for a cabin rental, and a note that read, "When you're ready to rest, find peace where the air smells like pine." It took me 3 months to sell the house. When I signed the closing papers, I didn't feel grief, just release. I drove south that same week, a single suitcase in the trunk, Laura's note folded in my wallet. The cabin was small but warm, tucked in a valley outside Asheville. Every morning I brewed coffee, stepped onto the porch, and watched the sun crawl over the trees. Some mornings I'd paint. Others I'd just sit and listen to the world move on without needing to fix it. Then one afternoon, a brown envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single check, a court-ordered restitution payment from Madison. Under the printed numbers, she'd written 2 words in shaky cursive: "I'm sorry." I folded it neatly, slid it into the drawer beside Laura's note, and didn't cash it. Some debts aren't meant to be paid with money. Months later, I took a walk down a mountain trail, and for the first time in years, I felt the ground steady under me. No cameras, no voices, just the hum of cicadas and the crunch of gravel under my boots. I realized then that revenge had never been about punishing them. It was about remembering who I was before they made me small. It wasn't rage that kept me alive. It was proof that I still had something worth protecting: my peace. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that silence can be a weapon or a wound. The trick is knowing when to use it. Have you ever had to take back control of something that once felt lost? Your home, your dignity, maybe your voice? Tell me in the comments. I'd like to hear how you found your way back. And if my story hit something in you, stick around. Because sometimes justice doesn't come loud. It comes quiet, with the sound of a door locking behind you for the last time.